There was nobody that he respected more than my mother. He thought that she was just about perfect.
And you feel at peace when you're around her. And she's so optimistic in her vision of the world.
She truly loves our land. She loves nature. She loves this country.
They complemented each other. She was soft, gentle. He was bombastic and impromptu. It made a wonderful combination for public life.
I admire the woman greatly. I watched her change over the years. I watched her become a very sophisticated woman, but she had never lost that down-to-earth quality that makes Lady Bird, Lady Bird.
They met for breakfast in the coffee shop of the Driscoll Hotel. It was 1934. He was 26 and secretary to a congressman. She was 21. Though it was their first date, Lyndon Johnson asked Claudia Taylor to marry him. She thought he was crazy. 2 months later, after a whirlwind courtship, she agreed. They honeymooned in Mexico and would spend the rest of their lives together as husband and wife and partners.
He had more faith in me than I do in me. And in the course of it, he often made me very mad, but he also made me a more effective human being.
When she married Lyndon Johnson, she married politics. He was a New Deal Democrat, a man of the people, and National Youth Administrator for the state of Texas. In 1937, Congressman Lyndon Johnson and his wife moved to Washington. For Christmas, he gave her a movie camera. It was a wonderful present for a woman with an eye on history in the making. Lyndon Johnson ran for the Senate in 1941, and Lady Bird was there with her movie camera. Though he lost the Senate election, he remained the congressman from the 10th District of Texas, and she was always there, behind the scenes and at his side. Who was she? Her nursemaid called her Lady Bird. A child of Alabama and East Texas. A child of nature. Serious, shy, independent, and smart. When she graduated from college, she had 2 degrees, one in history, another in journalism.
And I minored in philosophy, which I never regretted, because it gave me a sort of a long view of what humankind has thought and valued through the centuries.
Japanese have attacked Pearl Harbor in Hawaii.
After Pearl Harbor, Lyndon Johnson volunteered for Navy duty in the South Pacific. His wife ran the congressional office at home.
This happened to so many people in the war, particularly, I think, to women. You were made to carry a load that maybe you thought you couldn't, but you stretched and you tried, and maybe you succeeded. And Lyndon just made me do that.
In 1943, with money inherited from her mother, the Johnsons bought a radio station in Texas. It would prove a smart investment in a business with a bright future. And Lyndon Johnson was confident that his wife would make a great businesswoman.
Now, that was ridiculous. I wasn't that smart. But he would say something like this. You mean you've got 2 degrees from the University of Texas, and you don't know how to start something?
She certainly was a pioneer in going into a complete wilderness without experience. But she's a fast learner. She asks questions. She seeks advice. And she was pretty soon a good trail driver.
After the war, life with Lyndon meant life in Washington as the wife of a senator and mother of 2 daughters, Linda and Lucy. In 1955, Lyndon Johnson became the majority leader of the Senate. His star was rising fast. Life for the Johnsons in the 50s also meant a life divided between Washington and Texas. In 1951, the Johnsons bought a house from Lyndon's aunt on the banks of the Pedernales River.
The ranch itself has been in our family's possession for almost 100 years now. So I think the hill country was always his place to come back home. It's where his heart was. It's really where both of their hearts were.
I think it's important to remember how rooted they were in their love of the land and their love of the hill country and the family. Everything was there within them. So they came as well-prepared spokespeople for the American people to recognize that all people needed the land, the spirit, all of it.
Lyndon Johnson wanted to be president and was disappointed when the Democrats chose another candidate in 1960. But when asked to be vice president, he accepted.
It all began so beautiful. One last happy moment.
I feel like I am suddenly on stage for a part I never rehearsed, she told a friend. Though the country was still numb from the tragedy, it was time to get the wheels of life rolling again, the First Lady told her diary. She could not do the job alone. To be effective, the First Lady depended on the help of Bess Abel, who became her social secretary at the White House, and Liz Carpenter, the first press secretary ever to serve a First Lady. Together, they formed an unbeatable team.
Lady Bird was a dream boss. She never raised her voice. She never expressed disapproval. She made you want to do your best, and she was willing to go all the way, walk hand in hand till the last person left the White House.
We had that kind of sisterly trust, and I think we did a good job. I think we did a good job for the house and for the people and for the country.
I was so lucky in having both Liz and Bess, who enlarged the usefulness of the First Lady's office, and job it is.
It was hard to drag her away from her couch where she was dictating or desk or where she was signing things. She was always very active and busy. And I would sometimes kidnap her, so to speak, and take her to a show at the National Gallery or something. And I think she could allow herself to do that because she could justify it that she was doing something for me.
While there was never, ever any doubt that both of our parents adored each other and adored us, there was also never any doubt that my mother and father were married to public service.
In the fall of 1964, Lady Bird Johnson joined her husband's re-election campaign for a whistle-stop train ride through the South. Lyndon Johnson believed that passage of civil rights legislation was the most important accomplishment of his brief presidency. But it had not made him popular in the South. The train was called the Lady Bird Special. She called it a journey of the heart.
My mother, a daughter of the South, one who loved the South, went back to Alabama where she'd spent all of her childhood and faced tomatoes and hissing and all kinds of derogatory comments.
I think she reached out to the South and said, we love you, but it's important for the country and for everybody and for the South to be liberated from this grip of segregation, and we must give everybody the opportunity to live up to the best that God gave them.
I love the South, and I knew that it was going to be a hard job to make them swallow Lyndon's program of civil rights, and because it went against the grain of generations of history. On the other hand, I felt it was the right thing to do, and Lyndon said, I believe if I put in all my chips, we might be able to do it.
Will to the best of my ability.
Elected in his own right, Lyndon Johnson now began to speak of the Great Society, of fulfilling the promise of America for all Americans. In Appalachia and in America's cities, it would be known as the War on Poverty.
We're trying to rescue the next generation, to throw a lifeline to families who are lost in a sea of too little of everything, and perhaps, most of all, too little hope.
For Lady Bird, it meant Head Start.
Head Start addressed some of the health problems. Could the child see well enough? Deafness, perhaps. To give these youngsters a preparation for starting into what you hoped would be the great pleasures of learning.
Ms. Johnson, you have the doers of America here at the White House today.
As First Lady, she brought professional women into the White House for what became known as doers' luncheons.
For our law enforcement officers.
It was paying attention, much in the manner Eleanor Roosevelt did, to the women who were active in the causes of their country.
We must involve ourselves, commit ourselves as individual citizens, and then move decisively.
People will always remember Lady Bird Johnson best for her efforts to beautify America.
Well, one of the fires in my life is just a considerable admiration and love of this country. And I looked at our national capital, and it sure needed some color. And so we set about, what can we do? We can plant in the circles and squares and in the neighborhoods and parks everywhere. Rock Creek Park, just a jewel of a place. And we just had a wonderful time.
And we boarded buses at the White House. We drove to the mall, and Mrs. Johnson got down on her hands and knees, and she planted pansies.
And we hoped that it would have a ripple effect throughout the country. We worked in the neighborhoods and the schools, and we spent a good deal of money on rat-infested areas, a jump from beautification, but it's cleanup, and that's a big part of beautification.
What she hoped to accomplish, I think, more than anything, perhaps to set a standard for the nation, hoping that whatever she achieved in the nation's capital would be reflected throughout the country.
All over the country, there is an awakening to the preservation of nature's endowments. All I can say is, this is America beautiful. Thank you.
I am a natural-born tourist, an adventurer, and I've had a long love affair with nature. So I nominated myself as interpreter.
She was such a wonderful person to travel with because she wasn't fussy, she wasn't demanding, and she accepted whatever the conditions were. So those river trips were a lot of fun, but I think we also educated the country a little bit.
Mrs. Johnson had accepted the challenge of saving our natural environment as a personal challenge of her own. And she became our premier traveling sales lady.
It was a glorious part of those years. And I fell in love all over again with the physical country. The redwoods are bound to make you, to thrill you and give you a sense of the age of this land and of its offering.
She was a role model to us as individuals as well as a nation. She was an enormously disciplined person. Can you imagine recording her journal every night? I mean, up, homework done, ready to go, brighten the world, brighten you and me. She was a shining light that was greatly needed.
Lady Bird never used the word environment as much as I would have liked. The word beautification didn't express to me what we were doing and what her larger interests were. We were taking action that changed the nation's thought, and this resulted in an enormous number of laws. Clean air, clean water, wild rivers, you name it.
Her influence was not only in what happened in the 5 years she was there, but in the momentum that she created, which during that period added more areas to the national park system than had been added in the previous 35. It was like an ocean wave. It just kept boiling on itself, and it continued for years thereafter.
This expansion of the park system would not have happened without steady support from the First Lady and the President.
Lady Bird believed that America's highways were an engineering wonder, like the pyramids of Egypt. But driving back and forth between Texas and Washington made her realize that the highways could use some cleaning up.
I would just love to make this broad stretch of highways across the country not only safe and functional, but also a pleasurable experience. It's sort of opening up the heart of the country, letting us see what is us.
Where she provided the initiative, and that's always very important, it was undoubtedly highway beautification. It was literally her legislation and the President's push behind it that got it done. But it was more than just the law. It changed the feeling in this country about highways.
Her efforts to rid the highways of billboards met with some resistance. "I love that woman, and she wants this highway bill," the President told his cabinet. "By God, we're going to get it for her." Together, they did.
He wanted her judgment, and he would frequently say, well, I have to talk to Lady Bird about that. She was the one who could tell him when he was doing something wrong. He knew that she would always tell him the truth, and she didn't want anything. She wasn't trying to get any attention for herself.
No telling how many crises have been avoided by Lady Bird Johnson saying to her husband, "Now, Lyndon," I think that's probably been a major factor in history, those two words.
He valued me and respected my opinion, and I was deeply grateful for that and wanted to be worth it.
You want to listen for about 1 minute to my critique, or would you rather wait till
Yes,
tonight?
ma'am. I'm willing now.
During the statement, you were a little breathless, and there was too much looking down, and I think it was a little too fast. When you're going to have a prepared text, you need to have the opportunity to study it a little bit more and to read it with a little more conviction and interest.
In general, I'd say it was a good B+.
There's no question that Vietnam intruded in a very important way, and I saw this once when Lady Bird Johnson and I came to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and here for the first time she was being picketed.
Our family really gave all that we had. My father gave his political life in order to try to bring an honorable peace. My former husband, both of my brother-in-laws served there. It was a family affair. But so is our conviction to really all that my father tried to accomplish during his administration.
I shall not seek, and I will not accept the nomination of my party for another term as your president.
We were driving out of the North Portico, and it was one of those crystal sky evenings, and it just looked so beautiful, and the lights were on in the White House, and the lights were beginning to sparkle in the buildings there along Pennsylvania Avenue. And as we were driving out, I said, "Oh, Mrs. Johnson, are you going to miss this?" And she looked around and she said, "Oh, yes." I'll miss it. I'll miss it every day. I'll miss it like a front tooth. But you know, there's absolutely nothing in the world that would make me willing to pay the price for another ticket of admission.
After 35 years in Washington, the Johnsons were back home in Texas. Together, they built the LBJ Presidential Library and Museum on the campus of the University of Texas. Lady Bird became a regent of the university. And she led community efforts in Austin to clean up and beautify the banks of the Colorado River.
What you want with public money, in my opinion, is joyous use and good maintenance.
Lady Bird's love for wildflowers led to the creation of the National Wildflower Research Center, a place to educate the public.
I hope that visitors will come to appreciate what is native and indigenous, what the Lord put there, what grows in Virginia and Washington State and Vermont and Alabama and Texas.
There's no other place that can do for me what this soil and what this land and what this water and what these hills can do.
She came to love it, though, as much as he did. And one of the ironic things is Daddy would frequently, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, would say, "Let's go look at the deer. Why don't we go drive around?" And well, Mother had seen this only about 1 million times. And, you know, she practically knew all the deer by their first name and every bounce in the road and so forth. But Daddy got so much pleasure out of going and driving over the land and getting out and walking on it and checking how much water it had. And Mother just kind of went along, we thought, just being a good spouse and being very loving and supportive. And then after Daddy died, all of a sudden Mother would say, "Why don't we go look at the deer? Why don't we go drive around?"
My grandmother always had a way of bringing us all home, and that's what the ranch is. And whenever I think of heaven, I always think it's going to be someplace that looks exactly like the ranch on a beautiful spring or fall day. My grandmother's going to be sitting at the table in the morning and playing cards and eating ice cream and running around the go-karts and just sitting out under the huge, enormous tree, being with the people that I love, in the place that I love, doing the things that I love.
Hi, y'all. Are you all from far away, or where are you from?
Utah.
Oh, yes.
Boston.
Oh, I've got a grandchild there getting educated, naturally.
The LBJ Ranch on the banks of the Pedernales River is now a part of the National Park Service. A gift made long ago by the Johnsons to the American people.
I guess it's a fall of '67 that was put in, and this is close to 30 years old. So you really have to plan for the future when you plant live oaks. But the future is going to happen. And if you got children and grandchildren, you're much more spurred on to plan for the future.
I think, perhaps think of her caring for people so much that she wanted to enhance their lives in a new dimension of enjoyment and identity with their heritage, their environment, their spiritual nature. So that legacy is a tall tree in the National Forest.
It's not just environmentalism. She's trying to say, this is what it can do for you. You're never going to convince her that it's a terrible, awful place and it's falling apart. And when you're around her, you begin to think, well, maybe she's right. Maybe we can do something. Maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can go out there and change it for the better. And she really makes you believe that. She has made such a difference on this earth.